So my name is Stas Johnson-Chyzhykov. I've been with Artsy for nearly 5 years, pretty much since we launched Artsy publicly in October of 2012. I manage Artsy's collector relations team. And so what my team is concerned with is ensuring that our buyers have a great time and have a smooth time transacting through Artsy. It involves everything from sort of a smooth discovery of the artwork they like, connecting with galleries, auction houses, or whoever they're buying this work from, and then finalizing the purchase and hopefully returning to Artsy to buy subsequent artworks as well. We also are responsible for accumulating insights about our buyers, about the online market, and spotting various trends. And then we surface these trends to our product team, which is essentially our engineers and designers, and we offer suggestions how we can make the Artsy platform better so that our users have an amazing experience learning about art and buying art through Artsy. So my goals for today are, first, as I was saying, to complement what Roxana was talking about on Saturday, and hopefully give you some concrete examples of how Artsy is changing the market and hopefully elevating the market as well. I'm going to walk you through different facets of Artsy. And so by the end of our art together, I'm hoping that you'll have a very good understanding of how to use Artsy, whether you're looking to learn about art, buy art, or sell it. As I was saying, let's try and make this interactive. Feel free to ask me questions as I go along, either through a chat window or just shout out questions, and I will do my best to answer them. All right. So what is Artsy? Artsy.net. Hopefully many of you have had a chance to visit our site, hopefully read some of the articles that we publish, explore artworks. Artsy is the global platform for discovering and collecting art from museums, international galleries, auction houses, and art fairs. We're the world's largest marketplace for art, and our goal is to connect effectively supply and demand at a global scale, and to engage as many people as possible in arts and culture. So if I were to give an example of, let's say, an example of our success, that would be, let's say, if we have an art enthusiast somewhere in Brazil who is interested in art but doesn't know where to start. She goes online, she types an artist's name, or a name of the movement or type of art she likes. She finds the work on Artsy. The work is sold, let's say, by a gallery somewhere in New Zealand, and she buys the work through Artsy, puts it up on her wall in a few days, and maybe even in a few years comes back to Artsy to consign this work, to sell it, and sort of like find the next work for her collection. So we definitely want to be enabling collectors to discover art that's that is sort of like beyond their city, their town, and is truly enabling this truly global experience. So based on, let me switch to the next slide if I can. Okay, great. Do you guys see it, or? Okay, perfect. So based on various art industry reports, the size of the market is about 55 billion. This is sort of, this is a very interesting number. Most experts align that this is the size of the market. It's, you know, it's the best that we have, sort of. We can argue that this is an estimate, and given that so many art transactions are happening in private, the true size of the market is is much bigger. But regardless, what Artsy is trying to do is we're aiming to unlock the potential of this market. And that involves making sure that the existing buyers and sellers continue to buy and sell art easily, more smoothly, hopefully with the help of the technologies that are available. And also we hope that we bring in more buyers and sellers into the market and we grow the market. Our hope is that we can entice people that do not consider themselves art collectors, but maybe are art curious. Our hope is to encourage them to start buying art and be part of this conversation, start engaging with art and with artists, either in their city or beyond. One of our goals is to strive that anyone with an internet connection is able to discover and buy art. We know that currently there are certain geographical barriers in this industry, right? We have major art centers like Paris, London, of course, New York, and this is where you have sort of your biggest galleries, your biggest museums. But what about let's say art enthusiasts and collectors that are based outside of these major capitals of the world? They're still eager to find new artists, they're still eager to collect, and sometimes it is difficult. So our hope is that with our technology and our sizable inventory, we are enabling people that live in smaller towns around the world, will enable them to essentially reach the global art market, participate in it, and in general be more informed. Another goal of ours is to create a world in which art is as popular as music. This is sort of like this is the vision that we've created for the company, and we think that this is an exciting challenge to put in front of us. Just think about sort of the number of people that you see in front of any Kusama exhibition. This sort of suggests that there are many, many more people these days that are eager to connect with art and engage with art in person or online as well. And this is an exciting movement. We didn't see that just a few years ago. So it suggests that the market already is changing thanks to technology, thanks to the internet, given that images, let's say in this example of Kusama sculptures, become super viral and people want to experience it in person, want to be part of this experience. And in part, Artsy is contributing to this trend. We very much hope that we can inspire more people to engage with art by learning more about it when they read our editorial, by meeting new artists and galleries, and of course by buying it. And we think it's a very realistic, although a tough goal to achieve, just by looking at how much has been done in the music industry. Only, I would say, 20, 25 years ago, it would be difficult to access music, to find a special record or a certain album that you wanted. Now you can just type the name of the band in Spotify on this platform and you can easily access it. And we think that something very similar is possible for the art market, and we're inspired to make it happen. So these are fairly ambitious goals. How are we practically trying to achieve them? So Roxana spoke about the trifecta of data, news, and experiences on Saturday, which is a very compelling argument. And in part, I certainly agree with it. If we had more data, more news about the market, and we actually had exciting experiences, it would be easier to engage with the art world, understand it better, and feel less intimidated. But I would also like to challenge this idea and propose that that we can push this concept a little further. And I would say that these three components really will allow for the market to be more robust and more successful. And these are marketplace, content, and technology. This is the principle that we have been following for a while. So what does this mean concretely? Marketplace, every day we interact. We interact with marketplaces and we buy through marketplaces. Some of the, I would say, common examples include Amazon. What is a marketplace? Essentially, it's an online experience where many sellers list their inventory, and then you have buyers that either bid on these works or buy these works. It is a very efficient way of selling because it promotes transparency and a very healthy competition. What makes marketplaces successful is the supply and demand equilibrium, right? If you have a sufficient supply and you have sufficient demand, everyone is happy. And that to us is super critical. Especially in the early years of Artsy, I would say we were certainly aiming to focus on growing our inventory as much as possible. I remember that in the first years, this was one of our key goals, to upload as many artworks as possible. First, when we didn't have a content management system, it literally meant that we would get images from galleries on CDs, and we would manually upload every single artwork online. Now, certainly, this is made easier. Galleries can do this, and our partners in general can do this themselves, and they have much more control over inventory and how it is displayed. But all of this is to say that inventory is absolutely critical. We were publishing as many artworks we could find and could secure. That allowed us to start to appear at the top of Google search. Demand followed because now you had users that would type their favorite artist's name, and chances were that Artsy was the only marketplace that had those works online. I'm seeing that there are 3 chat questions, but I'm unable to click into them. Elena, did you want to ask them?
Right. So there is one question from Sarah, and Sarah is saying, I may have missed this point, but are there artists curated by Artsy, or is the platform similar to Artsy where anyone can set up their own gallery?
That's a great question. So currently, only our partners are able to upload artworks. Who are our partners? I'll talk more about that later, but it is galleries, art fairs, auction houses, nonprofit organizations. Currently, we do not allow artists to participate directly and upload their artworks online. So what we do is we partner with individual art galleries that we prior to that vet, and then we equip them with technology that allows them to upload artworks through our content management system, and it is, the content they can upload is unlimited, which is great. Mm-hmm. All right, so as I was saying, we are on our browse page. You can browse all the available works here. We have 500,000 of them currently online. All of them are for sale. This is, as I was saying, is a special admin experience. So I can essentially perform various actions on this page, and it will not affect our partners or the inventory. So what I wanted to walk you through is sort of like the experience of exploring an artwork that is available for sale and placing an inquiry for it. So let's take this artwork. So what you see here is obviously the image. You can see what it looks like in a 3D space. You can, on the right-hand side, explore all the metadata, the dimensions, title of the work. In this case, we can see it's asking price. If we scroll down, we can also see the artist's bio. We can read a little blurb about the gallery that is selling the work. We can also see works by the artists that were part of the same show. Generally works by the same artist and works from this gallery by other artists. We'll also see related artworks. So it's an amazing browsing experience that allows us to see the work of interest in context, find out more information about it. So if I'm interested in buying the work, I can place an inquiry on it. I can edit this message, this inquiry message, and contact the seller. In this case, it seems that I'm contacting an institution, meaning that Shoestring Press is a nonprofit organization. If the work was listed by a gallery, it would say contact gallery. So I'm placing the inquiry, I'm sending it here. It's asking me whether I want to edit message and make it more personalized, so that the galleries or the seller responds to me in a personalized way. Well, in this case, I will say send it anyways. Then I will enter account information if I'm not logged in, if I want to create an account. So my inquiry is now sent, and I will be asked a few questions so that the seller could learn a little more about me. I will be asked whether I have bought art before. Let's assume that I have. I will enter my profession here, where I'm based, my phone number, click next. I can start typing artists that I have in my collection, click next. I can type galleries that I've worked with. All this information is super helpful for the galleries to know, so that they know that I'm experienced or maybe maybe less experienced in collecting, and they can offer me a hand and help me sort of like navigate this process. Auction houses I've worked with, fairs I've attended. Super, and I can also enter my institutional affiliation. Let's say if I'm a member of the Whitney, Young Collectors Circle, so on and so forth. Perfect. So this inquiry is now sent. And when I receive a response from the gallery, which is usually within a couple of business days, oftentimes much sooner than that, I will receive that response in my Gmail, in my inbox, and then I can continue to communicate with the gallery from there.
Okay, we have a couple more questions, Stas.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
So the first question is from Asim. He's asking how many galleries and art fairs participate, rough numbers. And then
that's great. I will be covering that in just a few slides.
Okay. The second question is about the logistics. How do you deal with logistics?
Excellent question. So currently, as a marketplace, all the logistics are the responsibility of our partners, which is oftentimes what they know best. Galleries usually have preferred shippers, preferred insurance companies they work with, and so they are responsible for arranging those logistics for the collector. Yeah, so we currently do not offer those services, although obviously smaller galleries, smaller businesses are super interested in us getting into this game, because for a small business, sometimes it is harder to secure the best shipping rates or insurance rates. So this is certainly something that we're taking into consideration.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. There are two more questions now.
Go ahead.
The first question, are prices set? Can an offer be made that is lower than indicated?
Excellent question. At this point, the price is set. That said, the listed price is the asking price, and in many cases, the price is negotiable. It is currently not, this negotiation process is not yet structured. I know that some other companies allow for users to place an offer. In our case, this is totally possible, but via email. But down the line, we certainly consider this as a possibility.
Mm-hmm. And the other question is if you offer storage.
Storage for artworks?
I guess for the purchases, maybe in between, yeah, when the order was placed.
We do not hold any inventory. So as a marketplace, our main goal is to generate leads for our sellers and facilitate those connections. So our responsibility is to make sure that all the inventory is getting as many inquiries as possible. And then once the buyer and the seller shake hands, it is up to them to figure out the logistics, whether the work is going to be held at the gallery until the buyer picks it up, or if it's, yeah, all of those logistical questions are between the gallery and the collector.
I see. Perfect. Thank you. For now, that's it. Excellent.
So the second part of this trifecta is content. And content is a super critical part of sort of this of our success formula. It comes in many shapes and forms. First, it's our editorial. It is very, very importantly, it is absolutely independent from everything else artsy. We have a big editorial team of about 20 or 30 writers, and they decide what stories to write. They decide what artists, shows, art fairs to cover. The rest of the organization has no control over it. And this is super important to us. The second part, or kind of content that we create is obviously data around our partners and artworks, the inventory that's available. So all the metadata, shows, artist bios, pricing, super importantly, and of course, auction data. All of these things are uploaded on Artsy by our partners, and this is important contextual information that allows collectors to more confidently buy artwork. Another important type of content is our genome data. I'll be talking more about that later, but essentially it's a mechanism that allows users to discover art more easily and in general gain sort of like more terminology and understanding of different sort of like art terms and different categories that are art categories that are of interest to them. We're also working on things like content marketing and market data so that we could provide as much context as possible for our clients. So to give you a brief example of our editorial, maybe I'll actually do that later when I'm talking specifically about editorial. And now, given that we're already sort of like 30 minutes in, let me talk a little more about technology. So technology is, of course, sort of like the glue that that keeps everything together. We have Artsy obviously on desktop, on mobile, and iOS. We have the iOS app for iPhone and iPad. And we also have technology for our partners. It is the content management system. This is the sort of like the backend for our partners through which they upload inventory in Artsy, enter further information about their artists, shows, so on and so forth. For partners, we also have technology that we call Folio. Folio is an iPhone and iPad app for galleries that can easily manage their inventory on the go. Folio is most actively used at art fairs where exhibitors like to show additional works from their inventory to the fair goers, or want to issue, or let's say want to share artworks that are not necessarily on view. So with all this, I'd like to argue that the value, the added value that Artsy brings to the market is in this, in these three components of marketplace, content, and technology. Otherwise, you know, you would have to be reading about artwork in one place, bidding on it in another place, and with all these three components being on Artsy, we allow for buyers to discover, buy, and sell art easier and faster, hopefully. So let's talk more about the marketplace. As I was saying, over the past years, we've made a lot of effort to make sure it is as robust and international as possible. Our marketplace is global. We have galleries around the world, so as collectors. We also have most of the blue chip galleries, top galleries in the world. This is actually a very important point to make, that when we just launched Artsy, we made a lot of effort to first and foremost go after top market players. We went after blue chip galleries and made sure that we always had inventory from these, from some of the best galleries in the world. It was probably much easier for us to go after smaller, more regional galleries, but having Gagosian's, Werner, Pace on our side was super important, especially in the early days. It ensured that Artsy was considered a trusted marketplace, and that our brand value was growing, especially sort of like when we were just starting. And also, we work to ensure that our marketplace is balanced, meaning that our supply matches our demand. Currently, the average distance between our buyer and seller is 3,000 miles, which again confirms how global and diverse our audience and our galleries are, which is super exciting to us. And we hope to stretch those limits even further and make the issue of sort of like geographical barriers something of the past. So you were asking earlier about specific numbers. This is in brief what this looks like. We work with over 2,000 galleries around the world. As I was saying, obviously we work with some of the biggest galleries in the world. We work with top art fairs. Some of them are listed here, biggest auction houses, and of course, very important museums in the world. You will see that most of the partners listed here are very recognizable names. This is no surprise because we value partnership with all these players. They allowed us to build our brand value and build trust in Artsy. And we're also very proud to list these partners because one of our core principles has been partnership over disruption. Even though we're a tech company and the word disruptor or disruption are used so frequently in this space, we actually do not embrace this word as much. What we do is, and actually that's sort of like going back to what Roxana was saying in her lecture, it's not really about sort of like innovation or building something new, absolutely new for the market. What we're doing is we're essentially providing technology for all the market players to do what they do best, and that is in the case of galleries, promoting artists and selling art; for art fairs, bringing new art to new geographies; for auction houses, maximizing their sell-through rate; and for museums, it is the promotion of their programming and their shows. I see there's a new question.
Yes, there is a question from Asim, and the question is: do you disclose transaction volume, number of transactions, and dollar value? Is it something that you disclose?
Great question. Not at this point. We make effort to estimate what those are so that we could understand what value we create for our partners. For the longest time, we have been focusing on generating leads rather than closing sales. And I'll be speaking about that a little later, but essentially we have a messaging system through which, as a system that I showed to you, that allows to connect buyers and sellers. But we, until recently, weren't really focusing on tracking those transactions. We were literally focused on maximizing the number of leads. We just recently, last week, rolled out our first online payments tool, which allows galleries to issue payment links for collectors, and it's a very fast and easy way for for collectors to enter their credit card information and transact online. So we're hoping that this tool will be adopted by our partners and will be more active in sort of like in the process of actually in the transaction process rather than lead gen. So some numbers here, we have over 2 million monthly unique visitors. This is our growth monthly in traffic. It's doubling every month. And our audience, as I was saying, is sort of like fairly global, fairly diverse, but half of our buyers and users certainly are US based. In terms of the profile of our audience, it's no surprise given the nature of our business and the medium, which is online. The majority of our users are under 45, and we have a pretty even split between female and male users. All right, let's talk a little more about content, which was the second part, or the second sort of like part of our success formula, and that is content. And I want to specifically focus on editorial content. Yes, so I want to specifically talk about our editorial content because it's a great, I think, case study. Roxana in her presentation was talking about the importance of brand value and trust, especially when transacting online. We certainly believe that this is something we need to take into consideration. This was part of the reason why we built our independent editorial team. Within the last 2 or 3 years, Artsy magazine, which is currently an online-only publication, has become a true thought leader in the industry. We publish articles in 5 different categories, that is art market, visual culture, creativity, news, and art, mostly sort of like evergreen art historical content. And we have seen that over the past 2 or 3 years, we've become the most read online art publication, and we're continuing to grow, publish more and more articles, and engage an increasingly global and bigger audience around the world, which is super exciting. Here are some of the numbers around our performance. We're essentially quadrupling our growth, and our average time on site, users' time on site, is about 4 minutes, which in this day and age is really powerful. And we have a very high email open rate, which also suggests that for many, Artsy editorial is becoming a staple when it comes to art market news and in general, art market content. So next, I also wanted to talk about technology. Obviously, it's critical. It's a critical piece of the puzzle that enables the distribution of our content, and it also enables connections between buyers and sellers in our marketplace. As I was saying, Artsy is available on desktop, mobile, and iOS. And for our partners, we also have their own interface, the content management system, and Folio. Specifically, for consumer-facing technology, I would primarily focus on 4 components. The first one is our messaging system, which I showed to you earlier. It's the ability to communicate with galleries about the works of interest. And this has been an important lead generation channel for Artsy. And we just rolled out online payments, as I was saying, which will allow us to be more involved in the transaction part of these connections. We also have technology that allows users to bid on works in silent or live auctions. We have been partnering with major players in the industry, obviously Sotheby's, Christie's, Phillips, and more regional, yet still highly important auction houses around the world. And what we are helping them with is we're collecting bids from a global audience on works that are part of their online only or live auctions. This is the technology that we've built over the past 2 years and feel very proud of. Online bidding is something obviously that major auction houses tried, and obviously Paddle8 tried, and we're really excited to see the results we've been generating over the past couple of years, and are only hoping to double down on our efforts. We really see that we're capable of bringing amazing and most importantly new bidders to these auction houses. And these are not only existing collectors around the world that embrace our technology for its ease and convenience, but it's also first-time bidders, first-time buyers, which is very exciting, obviously for us, but also the auction houses. Another piece of technology that's important to us is, of course, recommendations. We have nearly 500,000 artworks available for sale, which is a huge number to choose from, even if you know what your taste in art is. So we are investing a lot in building recommendations that are intelligent, thoughtful, and personalized, obviously. And for that, we use our genome technology. And I'll be talking about the Art Genome project a little later. In addition, we're starting to focus on things like market data and content marketing capabilities. Market data is super important because users obviously want to make informed decisions. They want to have as much data as possible at their fingertips so that they could make right decisions about purchasing. So we recently acquired a firm with those capabilities and are hoping that coupling that with our existing data, we will be able to start surfacing really exciting market data for our users. We're also starting to invest in content marketing, and that is primarily educational content for first-time buyers and less experienced collectors. So we want to get better at educating collectors about buying in general, but also buying art online. Before we shift gears and I talk about the Art Genome project, any questions about technology?
Yes, there is another question, Stas. So the question is, do galleries tend to talk more via messaging tool that you provide with their clients, or offline via email via their own tools?
Oh, this is a great question. So to clarify, our messaging system is essentially email. If you have used, let's say, Airbnb in the past, you know that you connect with, let's say, the apartment owner via Airbnb's interface, but then the rest of the communication can also continue via email or via their messaging system. And this is the same principle. So our galleries continue to embrace email, which is what they're used to. Yeah, they can either do it through our messaging system when they're logged into their content management system, or through email.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. So next, here are some numbers. Oh, sorry. This is the Art Genome project, which is exactly what I wanted to talk about. So the Art Genome project, which was and remains a very critical technological component. So it is the classification system and technological framework that powers Artsy and our recommendations. The Art Genome project maps the characteristics, or we call them genes, that connect artists, artworks, architecture, and design objects across history. We currently have over 1,000 genes or categories in the Art Genome project. And these include renowned art historical movements in terms, subject matter, formal qualities, but also new genes that we created to better describe connections between, or rather characteristics of certain artworks. So maybe I can give you an example of what it looks like. Let's say if I'm interested, let me switch my Sharing view. So you're probably seeing this. So let's say I typed in search, I'm looking for feminist art. I don't know what exactly I'm looking for. I can then land on Artsy, see the description for this movement, for this art category. Here, I'm also seeing related categories, so I can discover that oh, maybe the CalArts school is something that that I'm interested in exploring further. I'm seeing related artists. I'm also seeing works by artists that primarily created work that falls into these categories. And then I can click on a specific artist. And then here I can discover further information about them. I can read their bio, see what categories they fall into, read their CV, obviously see all the artworks that we currently have online available for sale, look at the institutions where the artist's work is presented, galleries that either represent the artist or have their work. I'm also able to see relevant articles, shows, which is really powerful. So I can see past shows that the artist was part of, fair booths where their work was featured. And as I was saying, and this is powered by the genome, I'm also able to see related artists, related either through this category, art historical category, or purely visually or compositionally. Yeah, so here we have some of the numbers related to the Art Genome Project. Through it, we enable the discovery of over 1 million artists, and you know, the great majority of artworks that we have on Artsy are genomed, meaning they all have characteristics or genes applied to them, which enables their discovery. All right, let's talk a little bit about our iOS product. So we launched our consumer iOS app about 4 years ago, and over this short period of time became #1 app for art collecting in the App Store. We even have seen that not only is the app enabling faster and better discovery, but it is also conducive to buying. We have seen some of our most expensive works sold via the iPad app. For instance, a 1.4 million piece that was sold recently. So it's really exciting, and we love that the app is allowing to interact with the art world on the go, but also it compels people to buy art through our app as well. Of course, our product is constantly changing. And it's very interesting because just 5 years ago, when we were doing fairly new things in this market, we had to sort of like educate our partners and our users as to how to kind of like interact with Artsy and with the art market through our technology. And over the past 5 years, we found that the industry has caught up, the users have caught up with the technology in general, and now everyone is setting pretty high expectations for us. Everyone wants to see more data on Artsy, more pricing, more market data. They're constantly asks to have more artworks published, and this is a very exciting challenge. So we're hoping to continue to improve our product to remain competitive and also continue to challenge the industry in a very positive way. questions that I still have on my mind as sort of like time goes on and Artsy continues to grow is how do we continue to strive for a balanced marketplace where we have a demand as robust as the supply? How do we bring more and more collectors into the process of discovery and collecting art? Other questions I have in my mind are how do we continue to stay competitive with our technology and continue to innovate despite the high costs of doing this? How do we continue to incentivize our partners to publish more and more market data and artist data online so that our consumers feel informed when they make a purchase decision? And I also am wondering what we can do better to create a better experience for our first-time buyers, people that are less experienced in buying art. How can we make that first purchase more natural, exciting, inspiring, and less intimidating? So this is all I have. I'd be curious to hear your questions and yeah, any thoughts that you have in response to this.
So we have another question about the folio, not another question, but a question, follow-up question on your folio product. Mm-hmm. Is it a different app? How, I guess the question is how it's connected to Artsy's main product, or maybe if you can just talk a little bit more about folio.
Sure. Folio is a great iOS app that we launched, I think, about 3 or 4 years ago. And it is synced with our content management system, or rather the partner's content management system. So essentially, whatever they have in their Artsy CMS, they can upload to, or that information can be synced with Folio. This allows for galleries to have the entire or portions of their inventory accessible on the go, which is particularly useful when you're meeting clients, you know, in various settings, at networking events, at fairs, so on and so forth.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I have prepared. So I want to go back to Roxana's lecture again, and I know Asim hasn't seen it yet. Maybe Sarah, I'm not sure if Sarah watched our lecture on Saturday as well, but you're all going to receive a recording of it later today. So the question is about the human person, about the specialist. Do you feel equally as Roxana that we're going to need a human person in the process of buying and selling in the future, or you feel that technology is gonna just eliminate the human interaction in the process?
I will agree with part of her answer. I definitely think that we need smarter ways to advise collectors as to what to buy, what to sell. With the advent of technology and the internet, users and buyers suddenly have much more access to inventory, which is fantastic, but it is also intimidating. And making sense of this giant inventory is a little difficult. So we certainly need better ways to help users navigate this giant inventory and make sense of it. Now, will it be humans or the machines? We don't know yet. I certainly would hope that we have some sort of AI technology that will power this, just because it is not particularly scalable to have advisors on call at all times. If we truly believe that it is possible for any person in the world to interact with the art world and own art, then it is unscalable to have advisors doing this work. I think there will certainly continue to be demand for humans at a very high level for, when it comes to people that are very serious collectors. But I certainly hope that we will come up with technology that will allow, for the same results, but in a more scalable way.
Thank you. And we have a question, if is genome AI driven, or what kind of technology is behind it?
In part. So this is a perfect example of how we sort of humans had an amazing idea. For the first, I would say, few years, it was powered fully by people. So we had art historians that were manually applying individual art genes to every single artwork on Artsy, and that was great. This allowed us to make amazing exploration and do fantastic research in this area. But now we've learned from that, and we now have a great technology that allows to do this at scale, batch apply certain categories, so this is a perfect example where now we're sort of like transitioning into this hybrid of humans and machines, and who knows, maybe one day machine learning will get so great and visual recognition technology gets so great that, we don't even need art historians to do this. They just do sort of like quality control, quality check, and they're really powerful research, but everything else is done by machines.
So if you can talk a little bit more about your partners, can you please define them, who they are, and if you are planning to expand the partner base somewhere else, would be great as well.
Sure. So our partners now fall into a few categories. The biggest group of partners is private galleries. We certainly work with most top galleries in the world, and as time goes on, we're slowly able to add more and more regional galleries to our platform, which we're really excited about. The other group of partners are art fairs. We try to work with top art fairs in the world in order to promote art fair previews online. We work with major auction houses. This is another group of partners, and we aim to expand that list further, work with many more regional auction houses. And again, that's sort of like going back to the question of the marketplace and the equilibrium. We need to make sure that we're adding inventory and partners at the same rate as we're adding collectors. And so this is a very delicate balance that we're trying to navigate. And then another group of partners is obviously nonprofit organizations. And this could range from major museums like the Guggenheim to smaller nonprofits and somewhere far away in a small town.
Excellent. Thank you. Oh, there is another.
Excellent.
There is a comment. Thank you for the presentation. We first heard of Artsy while trying to navigate the Art Basel in Miami. Impressive service. So that's
super. Thank you. I think we'll be covering the fair again. Both, I believe, Design Miami and Art Basel Miami, which is super exciting. So yeah, hope you will enjoy it this year as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Everybody is happy and complimenting your presentation. Cool. All right. Thank you so much, Stas. Thank you for joining. Yeah. Excellent.
So if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out. I'm available at stas@artsy.net.